Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of New York Got Game. If you're a Knicks fan, you might be feeling good. The team has won 6 games in a row, but here's where they stand. 10 games are left in the regular season, so we are going to look at the 10 questions the Knicks must answer by the time they start the playoffs. And I thought it was no better person to do this with than my guy. You know him as Shawn with a W. It's my guy, Shawn Hardie from Knicks Film School, who joins me now. Shawn, what's going on, my friend?
I'm doing all right, Dexter. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I can't complain. I don't know about you, though. I'm just in this mode where I just need the playoffs to start. We just need 10 more games. You know, you create a lot of content. You do your thing with KFS. You know, you kind of getting to this point where it's like, all right, let's just get there. We just got to get there, man. We just got to get there. Trying to get to the end. Just trying to get
Yes. And if I feel that way, I can only imagine how that the Knicks must feel that way times 10.
there. Yes. And see, I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking about this on the last show with my guy Brian Fonseca. And listen, this is not just a Knicks problem. This happens to all these teams in the NBA. These games at the end of March, it's tough. It is tough. You know you're going to the playoffs. The Knicks now have 47 wins. You know, they're going to be a 50-win team. There's very few games on the schedule that they're really looking forward to. So you're going to see some performances like we saw last Friday night against the Nets. Am I tripping over it? Not really. Just got to get to the playoffs. That's all. We just got to get there. But
Yep.
I'm glad you're good. However, before we get to the playoffs, got some questions to answer about the Knicks. So just to let everybody know how this is going to work, I came up with 5 questions that I think the Knicks need to answer before the start of the playoffs. Shawn came up with 5 questions of his own. We are going to discuss those questions, hopefully try to answer those questions. We might not be able to give you an answer, but we're going to try. We're going to see what we can do in order to answer those questions. So Shawn, since you are the guest here on this show, I am going to let you kick it off with your first question. What is the first question that you have that the Knicks need to answer before they tip off in the playoffs?
So my first question is: everyone is familiar with the Knicks' slow starts in the first quarter. Their net rating, particularly with the starters in the first quarter, is very poor. Are these slow starts simply an illness, or are they a symptom of something much, much bigger?
That's a good question. And I have a question similarly to that. I don't think that it's a symptom of an illness. I'm a believer in you have to have good habits, though, right, Shawn? You want to build good habits by the time you get to the playoffs. The counterpoint, and I'm going to steal this counterpoint from my guy Brian Fonseca, Knicks are the best fourth quarter team in the NBA. So when they do have the lead going in fourth quarter or not, they generally finish strong. I tend to think sometimes we this doesn't matter about starting games, right? But a lot of people always say, I want to change this with the starting lineup. And I understand what people are going to say. They're like, Dex, you just did an episode about whether or not Mike Brown should change the starting lineup, right? And I think you and Jeff did something talking about this as well, too, whether or not they should change the starting lineup. And I was listening to you guys and your thoughts on this, too. And I think a lot of times we overreact to starting lineups and how teams start, not saying that starting off good is bad. Here's my concern, Shawn. You don't want to get in bad habits with the slow starts because if you're doing it against bad teams, those habits could then go into playing good teams when you get into the playoffs. So you don't want to have that. However, I do think we should probably pay a little bit more attention to the fact that this team closes games strong and maybe look at that as a strength. We've also seen them come back in games where you probably thought they were dead in the water. The Houston game is one that comes to mind for me that I was in the building for. Didn't think the Knicks were going to come back in that. They did come back in that. I don't think it's a symptom of a larger problem, but I do think there's something there. The data suggests that this starting 5, has not been as strong. They've been a net positive. I want to be clear. It's not like they've been a net negative, but it hasn't been a strong net positive. I think it's something like 1.6 is their net rating for the starting 5. It was 1.6 last year. It's 1.5 this year. I may have those flipped. Either way, the difference is a tenth of a point, right? It's not that much different. The difference is the starting lineup was leaned on more last year because minutes police, Tibbs, and that whole thing. The starting lineup is not leaned upon as much this year So I'm not as concerned about it because I actually think these starters are going to be fresher. However, all that being said, you got to get off to better starts against good teams. You can't afford to get down 10, 14 points. Even when you're playing, I would say, the Toronto Raptors, and I hope the Knicks aren't down 10 or 14 points to the Toronto Raptors in the first round, right? But then when you start playing the Celtics or the Pistons or even the Cavs, who I don't believe in as much, you can't have that slippage. I think this team is bored, like we were talking about in the beginning. I think they're waiting to get to the playoffs. I know people don't want to hear that, and they think that everybody's going to go 100 miles per hour for all 82 games, but that's just not how things work. And this ain't 2K, and this ain't you playing with the team with injuries off and all of that. That's not how it goes. This team, I think, is a little bit bored. Do I think they're going to get up for some games they have coming up? OKC, Houston, Boston? Yeah, I do. We'll see how they start off in those games. So I don't think it's a big symptom of a larger problem. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, Shawn, they're still winning. They've still won 6 games in a row at the time of us recording this. So slightly, on my concern level, it's like a 4. That's where I am. What about you?
My concern level was a 2, and then it went up to a 3 like this Friday for that reason you gave, that if you develop these habits if you develop these habits of starting slow against the bad teams, it's going to be hard to break. It may be harder to break it against the good teams because you're just used to this. I've on record of saying, I've said this on KFS plenty of times. It seems as if the starting lineup goes into every game saying, let's figure out how much energy and effort and intensity we have to put in to win this game. And it's like they say they have a number and they go into that game with that number. And if it takes them a quarter realizing, oh, we really got to play harder today. Now, some of these games, like the games in LA, they just couldn't hit the broadside out of a bar from 3. And they would let and this has been something that they've done all year, where if they're not hitting threes, if not hitting shots, they let that dictate their defense, and they let that dictate their defensive intensity. But I know this team from following this team all season. They clearly get up for certain games, and they clearly make business decisions for certain games when it comes to how much energy they're gonna expound. Like they're going to be up for OKC from minute 1. In fact, I say this: they look at Boston the way Detroit looks at them, because they don't mess around when it comes to Boston, even though they fell behind 20 in games 1 and 2 last year. Like they get up for Boston the same way how Detroit gets up for them, but they're just like, yeah, Detroit, whatever. So I'm not worried, but it's like at some point, all you need to know is this: after which game was it? Which game was what? I forget which game it was, where Mike Brown basically said he didn't name a defensive player of the game, and he
Golden
said
State.
State, yes, that 1 week ago. And he said, we have to be, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but we have to be better. We have to start out better. And I tweeted and I said, that is the tone of a man who is tired of having this conversation.
He said this for the last time. This is the last time he said it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not saying this again. Like, it's like, how many times can you keep doing this and think it's okay? Like, this is almost like you're trolling us at this point.
Yeah. No, it's fair, and it's annoyance. I don't know, because I was thinking about what you said. I'm processing all here. I said, okay, maybe the team will respond to this in a way. Now, they came out. They said it was hard to judge the start against Indiana because the starting 5 wasn't there. Jalen Brunson doesn't play in that game. Then you see the Nets, and look, come on, man. Most of y'all out here can't get excited about a game for the Nets, and you act like these players should. I understand it. They did start off well against the Wizards on Sunday. That's kind of where I am, right? These things are going to happen at this time of year.
Yes.
Do you love it? Would you love it if it was a perfect world and they were all in from the jump? No, but I understand, to your point, why they get up for Boston, because they have a lot of respect for Boston. Maybe they're slightly disrespecting the Pistons. I don't know. But I also understand why they're like, yeah, we beat them last year. I don't think they're sleeping on them, and I think the Pistons will have their attention should they see them in the playoffs. But there's a long way between there and now. I'm with you. So it seems like for both of us, the concern level for this is low. I think this is what you're going to see at this kind of season. Maybe I'm a bit of a glass half full guy. They're still winning games, and they're taking care of their business, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And at this time of the year, since it's March, why don't I say this? Sometimes you just got to survive in advance. And they've been surviving and advancing, right? All right, good question. Here's my question. I'm curious what you have to say about this player. Is Mikal Bridges going to stop disappearing? Come on, Shawn. We can't have the Knicks fans are not. They don't want to see this. You have and listen. I understand what everybody's going to say too. Dex, he had a good game against the Wizards. He had 14 points. Mikal Bridges' 14 points in the games against the Wizards was the most points he had since March 5th when he scored 15. We've seen him in a game this month where he had no points. We've seen a stretch. Let me look at this so I have this correct here. The last 10 games before the Wizards game on Sunday, Mikal Bridges was averaging 8.4 points. He was shooting just over 35% from the field, and just over 29%, just under 30% from downtown, from three. It's not good. Not good. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bring up the cost, Shawn. I'm not going to talk about the sunk cost and what was given up for him. Doesn't matter. It's done. It's out of here. What I am going to talk about is the fact that he's not playing well, and if he's not consistent and he's disappearing as we've seen this season, is how much is that going to hurt the Knicks? That's the question I have, right? Is he going to show up? That is the major question for me. Shawn, please. I know the people out here are asking. Do you have an answer? Do you have some help? Anything you can give the people, please.
I think he'll show up. I believe in Occam's razor, which says the simplest answer is often the right answer, and the simplest answer is he's going through a slump. Well, before Sunday night, he's going through a slump. It happens. But to your point, the cost will hang over his head as long as he's in orange and blue. And that will be the scapegoat. That will be the thing that people point to. Because, listen, when you pay, and I'm not going to mention the exact cost. We all know what it is. But when you pay as much as you did to acquire that player, well, some people believe that if you play that for a player, he should be an all-star and scoring like 25 and 12 a game and yada, 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 which is whatever. I'm not worried about the cost because it's a sunk cost. And if the Knicks actually win the championship, no one is going to care. I'm old enough to remember people losing their mind when the Bucks traded 3 firsts for Jrue Holiday. And guess what? They won the title and nobody cares. He'll show up in the playoffs. He's just going through a slump. As a wise man once said, who used to coach the New York Knicks, you don't have to shoot well to play well. And shout out to my guy, DJ Zulo of Knicks Film School, who has pointed out all the things that Mikal Bridges has been doing on the defensive end and not just on the ball because, so many people just think defense is locking people up on ball or whatever, right? He's doing so many things on the defensive end that don't show up in the stat sheet, that don't show up on highlights, that don't go viral on social media. So the offense will come back around. I'm absolutely positively sure of that.
Yeah, and we saw him play reasonably well, not just defensively in the playoffs. And it's funny because I did a video with DJ last week, and we talked about that with Mikal Bridges and going through the slump, and I also talked with Stephen Bondi about this, and we didn't want to ignore the fact that he has had an impact on defense, still up there in deflections, still up there with steals. He has been doing a good job in there. But the Knicks are going to need him offensively, but you feel good about him showing up in the playoffs, just going through a slump, which is fair. If we want to say the team is going through the dog days of March, maybe Mikal Bridges is going through. Maybe the Washington game, he was able to break out a little bit. We'll see what happens to them. What's your next question that you got, Shawn? What you got?
So I'll just say really quickly, if Mikal Bridges was averaging 6.5 points a game all year, instead of averaging 6.5 points a game for like a week and a half, I'd be more worried.
Fair.
My second question is to another player that the Knicks acquired in the same offseason as they acquired Mikal Bridges, that is Karl-Anthony Towns. And that question is, has Karl-Anthony Towns figured out his role in the offense? And I say that because Karl-Anthony Towns has gone on record. He said it from day one, not even game one, practice one. I don't know what my role in the I don't know what my role is in the offense. We've heard this all season. I'm still figuring out my role. I'm still figuring out my role in the offense. And I started pushing back on that by saying, Carl, it's not that you don't know your role in the offense. You know your role in the offense. You just don't like it. Simple
Those
as
are
that.
two
To
different
me.
things.
Yes. But he's not going to say, my role in the offense stinks. I want to do these things, but he didn't like it. Because think about it. If you had a quarter for every time he did one of those pump fakes at the top of the key, driving to the paint, barreling in, going for a layup, and which either goes in great or doesn't go in, but either way he ends up on the floor, and it was leading to a 4-on-5 the other way. You'd have a lot of quarters,
Fair.
and you saw a lot less of that in the first half of the year, and I think Carl was frustrated about not being able to do the things that he wanted to do, and what you have seen lately is that you've seen a little bit more of it, but after the 2-9 stretch and the players only meeting, which wasn't a players only meeting according to Josh Hart, we were dragging it apparently. But in the collection of players who had a discussion about basketball,
Yep.
it seems as if after that we've seen a different Karl-Anthony Towns on both sides of the ball. But I'm focusing on the offense. So, do you think he's figured out his role, or is he still figuring it out, Dexter?
So here's what I'm going to do, because you brought up this question. I had a cat question. I figured why not just tie this all together. I'm going to say, to answer your question, yes ish. Right? I feel like there should be enough. Let's just go to this. Let's go post All-Star break, Shawn, and I'm going to take one game out of it. Post the Pistons game following the All-Star break, which was a disaster for the Knicks, and Knicks fans were very angry about that, and rightfully so. Cat's been really good since then. This is one of Cat's better defensive seasons. I know you're just talking about offense, but he has cut down on the dumb fouls, something that I was very concerned about for this team when they acquired him. It was my biggest concern. It wasn't about talent. It wasn't that I didn't think that he could play really well offensively. It was like, okay, is he going to be on the floor when the Knicks need him? That was always the concern for me. And everything that you described, from the top of the key, gets the ball, puts it on the ground, barrels straight to the basket, and it's an adventure for all of us. We don't know. Well, I was going to say we don't know what's going to happen. We just don't, to your point, we just don't know how he's going to end up on the floor and whether or not he's going to be called for a foul. That is the question. That's what we don't know. We know something's going to happen. We've seen less of that in the second half. Let's give that man his credit. He's cut down on fouls, particularly offensive fouls. He was leading the league in offensive fouls right around the All-Star break. He still might be. I'm not sure where it is now. But that was a problem. So my question for him, Shawn, I feel like if we want to talk about good habits, he looks like he's starting to build up some good habits. But none of that is going to matter if those habits just go out the door in the playoffs. Nobody's going to care. So my question that I had about Cat, I'll toss back to you, is can he continue his balanced play in the playoffs? Because the play has been balanced to me. And what I'm seeing is the good defense that I mentioned before, the cutting down on the fouls, playing within the system offensively, still getting his numbers. And we saw an adjustment at first, even right before the All-Star break, right? The scoring was down, but he was still putting up really high rebound games. This guy's still been a monster on the glass. The play has been very balanced. He's playing like the number 2 that the Knicks need. So do you think, I'm saying yes-ish to your question, but do you think he can continue his balanced play in the playoffs? That's my question to you about Cat.
I hope so. And the reason I say I hope so is because years ago, I took a training class at work, one of those emergency trainings, whatever. And I'll never forget the gentleman. He gave this emergency situation about a man who gets into a building and, he has a weapon there, yada, yada, yada. And he said, people think that in pressure situations, we rise to the occasion. But we don't rise to the occasion. We sink to our level of training. So when the you know what hits the fan, we as human beings go back to what we know. One can only hope, because you're right. Karl has cut down on the silly fouls. He's accepted more of his role in the offense. Like, he's been better defensively. He's been more engaged defensively. Let's hope he's gotten enough hours and training doing that since the Pistons game, so that in a high leverage situation in the playoffs, he doesn't go back to the silly fouls and stuff. Although, for some reason, Karl does have a propensity to just play well in the playoffs on both sides of the ball. If you may remember, during the 2024 season, when he was on Minnesota, they made the conference finals. He did a very good job of guarding Nikola Jokic. I always remember I don't remember if it's game 1 or game 2 against Boston, where he knows enough to foul Jalen Brunson on the floor, knowing that the Knicks had a foul to give. And a lot of people thought it was a silly foul. I was like, no, he got him on the floor because they had a foul to give. So I guess that's part of his training too. So I hope so. I believe so. I believe that he, when you're in the league 10 years and, you made 2 conference finals, but you're the number 1 pick in the draft. Like, people expected you to help bring a franchise a championship, and he's not going to bring this franchise that drafted him a championship, but maybe he could bring one here. So I'm hopeful that he can, because at this point, what we've seen is in his improved play on both sides of the ball, we're not just hoping and praying that he's just going to flip some switch on April 18th or April 19th. He's establishing better habits, which hopefully he will sync to his level of training, and that is what he's been doing the last, month and change.
Yeah, I think I have to trust good habits over time. The same way I've been talking all season long on the show about this Knicks defense needs to get themselves somewhere between the 8th best defense in terms of defensive rating and 10th in the league. If they can do that, they'll give themselves a good shot to win a championship. And they have, and they made some tweaks to the defense. Part of that defense being better has been Cat. We got to give him credit with that too. And so if I'm believing in the defense more, then I got to believe in Cat's habits more. And he's, whether you want to call it accepted his role, liked his role, whatever you want to say, he's producing and thriving in the system in a way that we haven't seen before. I think the last thing I'll say on this, we can move on from Cat. I think the key, Shawn, is going to be, what does he do against teams that put smaller players on him? And is he able to punish them in the way that he's done? One thing that we've seen from him this year, less threes. I sometimes would like to see the volume of threes go up for him a little bit more. We haven't seen that. But what I will say, regardless of that, the shots he's been taking have been, particularly in the second half, of much better quality. And that's what you like, getting to the line a little bit more, not having those silly fouls. All that stuff matters too. So hopefully he can't do that. But I like the process of where it's going. And if this is a new Cat that we're seeing, well, I mean, and he does what he's supposed to do in the playoffs, things will be good for the Knicks. All right. What's your next question that you have?
All right. Question number 3. They have to figure. I guess they have to figure this out before the playoffs. But playoff rotations. Who will be in the playoff rotation? Particularly, will Mohamed Diawara be a part of the playoff rotation?
Okay, so this is another one where we have a little overlap here. So we're gonna have to try to work this out together. You asked, will he be part of the playoff rotation? So my question to you also will be, which I think is important if you're going to consider this, my question on Mohamed Diawara is, well, actually, let me pause that for a second. Will he be part of a playoff rotation? I'll get to my question in 1 second. I think yes.
Okay.
Because when I look at Mohamed Diawara, and I had a chance to talk to this young man about a month ago, very confident. There was a confidence to him that I just liked, where I was like, okay, this dude is not scared. I don't think he is shooketh at all about the playoffs. I don't think that
I agree. I agree. I agree.
Now, I don't think he understands the level of intensity of the playoffs, and sometimes that's where youth can work in your favor. You ain't shook because you don't understand. But sometimes that fearlessness in those situations can be really good. I think that you've seen a lot of what this kid has had. He's gotten his minutes here and there. I had looked at it in his last 12 games. There's only one time he's played less than 11 minutes in his last 12, 13 games now. He's played less than 11 minutes. So Mike Brown has been giving him minutes through these dog days of March. That helps him get experience. And again, regular season basketball, postseason basketball, two different things. That is exactly why, Shawn, we are having this conversation, because we understand that. But you can't get ready unless you get experience. And you got to get experience sometime, and you got to experience playoff basketball sometime. So for me personally, why not now? Why not now? I mean, we saw Tom Thibodeau, who got killed for minutes. He gave Emmanuel Quickley playoff minutes when he was a rookie. So we've seen this before, and you've got to learn. Now, you might tell me, hey, Dex and Shawn, the stakes are higher for this Knicks team. This is a team that has finals or bust aspirations. But you know what they need off the bench? Some size. Because if you're talking about other players to play off the bench, there's a lot of guards. This is a guy 6'9", has played, for the most part, well on defense. Times he's looked lost and looked like a rookie, but for the most part, he's played well. So my answer is yes, and why not? Why not play him? I'm almost trying hard to figure out the reason why you wouldn't play him, other than your only reason being inexperience. But isn't the goal to win, and don't you want to try to go down with your best players and also throw a look that maybe other teams haven't seen enough? Isn't that something you want to use?
So I think, to answer your first question, why wouldn't he be part of the playoff rotation and get minutes? It's because coaches usually shorten their rotations. And you said, you want to put your best players on the floor. If Deuce McBride comes back, he's going to be playing. That's 6. Mitchell Robinson ain't going nowhere. That's 7. Why am I blanking? Jose Alvarado's here. That's 8. You have Jordan Clarkson. That's 9. Like, a lot of guys don't have 10. A lot of coaches don't play 10 guys in the playoffs. Now, what I think you may see is, to borrow another word from the former head coach of the New York Knicks, situational. There may be situations where you will see Mohamed Diawara may not play game 1. He may play 7 minutes in game 2. He may not play game 3. He may play 5 minutes of game 4. I don't think his spot in the playoff rotation is nailed on. However, I do not think that he's going to be buried and not play at all until, the Knicks are down 2-0 in the conference finals. And it's like, hey, you get out there and do something. So I think he will play, but I don't think you have carved out I don't think he has a definite 10 to 15 minutes carved out for him, like, automatically. Like, against the Wizards on Sunday night, he played 12 minutes. I don't know if that's gonna be in stone for him in the playoffs, but we'll see.
Okay. Now, I think the interesting name you brought back when you were going through the guys, right? I'm rock with you. I'm with Deuce McBride. He's gonna get minutes. Jose Alvarado's gonna get minutes. That is a small backcourt off the bench, but those guys are good defensively. Mitch is getting minutes. It's not going anywhere. We see how valuable Mitch is with the rebound rate and everything. Jordan Clarkson's an interesting name. Mr. Stay Ready has got himself back into the rotation. He's been getting minutes. He's been playing really well. He provided a spark. We're not even just talking about in Utah. He was one of the bright spots against that interesting game against the Brooklyn Nets on Friday. He was one of the bright spots there. It actually provided some energy. I think the fact that the Knicks have a coach that you can talk about, Mr. Shawn Hardie, and say that he would consider playing Mohamed Diawara, situationally, I think that's huge. I think that's how you should be reading the game. The best teams that we saw in the playoffs last year, if you want to just talk about the finalists in Oklahoma City, and we know the depth they have, and even the Pacers, those teams were going 10 deep for most rotation. Even if somebody was getting 3 minutes here, even if we saw Tony Bradley for the Pacers getting 3 minutes in a playoff game, you liked how situationally Rick Carlisle, who's a fantastic coach, used it. The question I have for you about Mohamed Diawara, and I'm intrigued by the way you said and talked about things being situational, do you think that he's ready for playoff minutes? Because it's one thing for you to say that, hey, I can see Mike Brown using him here, but do you think he's ready for playoff minutes? Whatever those minutes will be, even if it's 5 minutes here, if it's 10 minutes here, do you think that the young man is ready for playoff minutes?
So I think he's ready. That doesn't necessarily mean I think he's going to be great. Because to your point, he's a rookie, and we even see it now. Like, especially on the defensive end, some of the things he's done defensively is he makes rookie mistakes. Also on offense too. I just think people see him hit open threes and like, oh yeah, you got to play. But in the playoffs, the intensity goes up. The rotations are crisper. The defensive rotations. What was open on a Sunday night in March is not open on May 1st, right? And how will he adjust to that? Because again, it's not like he's been playing 25 minutes a game for 82 games. There's times that he plays, there's times that he doesn't. So he's fearless. So if he's open, he's going to take the shot. Or, maybe do a pump fake, attack the closeout, what have you. So I think he's ready. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play well, because you brought up Emmanuel Quickly. Emmanuel Quickly was ready, but he didn't play well in those playoffs against Atlanta in 2021.
Did not.
So we have to be, and listen, the name that escaped me is Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet is going to be part of the rotation. He's going to be part of the rotation.
We didn't even talk about Shamet, who might be their best on-ball defender. Yeah, we didn't do that.
So,
at least once this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to be situational, which is fine. To your point, that's a card you'd like, that you're happy to be able to play if necessary.
And if I would have said, I think to most Knicks fans or most people who cover the team, if I would have said to you at the beginning of the season, hey, see that guy they drafted in the second round? At the end of the season, you're going to be talking about him as a situational player in the playoffs. We all would have been like, really? But here we are talking about him as a situational player, and that's not a bad thing, right? I think that's the key for me. Mike Brown will be willing to use him if necessary. Now, for him to get more minutes, will he have to reward him and be well enough? Sure. But I think there are series where you're going to need him, because if we look at it, all the guys you mentioned, you're talking about one big in Mitchell Robinson and 4 guards. The Knicks could use some sides off the bench, and if Diawara can help them in the playoffs, that could be huge. There's matchups. Mm-hmm. I think he could definitely help them. So we'll see. I think he's ready for playoff minutes. Will he produce in the playoff minutes? That's a different question. We won't know. We haven't seen that movie yet. All right, so we've gone through 3 questions each. We did have some overlap. I do have one that's going to overlap with something you said before, but we'll get to that in a second. What's your next question?
Is Jalen Brunson hurt?
Oh, is he hurt? Now, okay.
I had a friend of mine,
that's interesting.
Zach Rosenberg, shout out to him. He texted me and he said he felt like Jalen Brunson had like an ankle issue. I forget which game it was. And listen, Jalen he has said, if I can walk, I can play. And God bless him. He's a warrior, he's a soldier, he's all the things. Just watching him these last 10 days, and then listen, the fact that they held him out of the Indiana game, which gave him 4 days off before the Brooklyn game on Friday night, was like, what they call like he has a neck issue, and like the ankle, because listen, Jalen rolls his ankle twice a year.
We see
like
this. Yes,
it is what it is, right? Knock on wood, I don't wish injury to nobody, but that's what happens. But then now I'm seeing like this. He has a cervical issue with his neck, and I'm like, that's no good. Like, issues with your vertebrae and your, like, you don't want,
do not want
in
that.
The back of your neck, you don't want that at all. So, I mean, by this time of year, everyone's banged up. Cat's been banged up all year. Josh Hart missed the Brooklyn game. He's banged up. Landry Shamet did not play against Washington on Sunday night. So, like, everyone's banged up to a certain extent. But, like, is he hurt? Like, is he hurt to the point where his ability to perform in the playoffs will be compromised at some level?
It's a good question. It's
You're thinking about it.
and I have. It's funny because we have these questions that just like flow into each other. That's
Mhm.
great for this discussion. I don't know. I did find the him not playing in the Indiana game interesting to give him the 4 days off against Brooklyn, and in the Brooklyn game didn't look that great. He really didn't look that great. Now against Washington, 9 of 19, he hasn't really shot the ball well for 3 weeks.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe more. We're talking about now. That's been concerning. Again, late in the season, you make a great point. Tired leg, everybody's tired. All that stuff. Jalen Brunson has now hit the 65 game mark. He's past that, so he's eligible for any awards and should be second team All NBA likely again. Um, Here's what's interesting with you saying that. If he's not 100% and he's hurt, and I'm intrigued why your boy Zach thought this, and is this something he's noticed with him moving about? Is Zach a doctor? Does he work in movement science? He might have observed some things, just not seeing the lift on the shot or all that. How do the Knicks play this with him over the final 10 games, Shawn? Are they going to hold him out so some more games against lesser competition? I'm sure they want him in for the OKC game, the Houston game, the Boston game, honestly, even the Charlotte game that's coming up this week as well, too, with the way they're playing. So you might want to see that. I think if he is hurt, what I will say, again, don't know, haven't heard anything from anybody on that front. Now I'm going to have to do some asking around. If he is hurt, I think the Knicks have to be cautious with this. They got to make sure he's right. And if you know that he's hurt now and it's something that he can rest, do it before the playoffs. Now we saw Jalen Brunson hurt and missed most of March last year, came back for the last couple of games, played before the playoffs, got his ankle right, and everything was fine. If it's the neck, I'm not playing around with that, like you said. I'm not saying you should play around with the ankle either.
Hmm.
But listen, injuries are not supposed to be something to be played around, and the guys want to be out there. I get that, but you need Jalen Brunson right before the start of the playoffs. And quite honestly, offensively, he just has not looked like the Jalen Brunson that we know. Now, am I tripping off of this too much with him? No, because Jalen Brunson generally gets this right. He's a player I generally don't worry about, but you still want him to get right before the playoffs.
Hmm.
That your question leads into my question that I have about Jalen Brunson. And let's even say that he is not healthy. Let's say he's not 100%. Is Jalen Brunson being asked to do too much with this offense? When you look at the usage rate, 32.5%, yes, there are some people out there that are saying that he's a ball hog and he's hurting the team, and I think those people are a bit ridiculous. But is he being asked to do too much, and especially with the health, does he need other people to step up and take the load? Now, we talked about Cat playing pretty well in the offense, but we've also talked about Mikal Bridges going through his slump, disappearing a time in games.
Hmm.
Are we asking, not we, you and me, but is the team and the organization asking just too much of this guy that has carried the Knicks for a long time, but if they're going to try to get to where they want to go, they're going to need other people to step up and take a little bit of the load off of the captain. What do you say to that?
So I think the answer to that question is yes and no.
Okay.
I think you can say no because one of the hallmarks of Mike Brown's offense is that it was going to be more egalitarian. It wasn't going to be, go find a match event, go create advantage, get two in the ball and what have you, right? Or heavy ISO ball. So the organization, by bringing in a different head coach, has realized that they just did, like, it can't be, what do we call that offense last year? Save us 11. They can't. That's not feasible. But I do say yes because they're asking him indirectly by the way certain players are playing or maybe not playing. You know, um, Jalen Brunson wears Kobe sneakers, and Kobe Bryant, God bless his soul, was second to none in the. All right, you guys are on BS tonight. I'll take care of it. I got it. Whatever. You know. So if because OG was in a bit of an offensive slump for a while, we spoke about Mikal Bridges already. Cat, he comes and goes and what have you. So Indirectly, sometimes they are asking him to do too much because, like, if no one else is going to do anything, me, all right, I'm the captain, I got it. So I'll take care of it. Um, so I would say yes and no. I think it's no, but actions speak louder than words. And if the team is not going to play at their level, if the team, I mean, it's not a coincidence that Jalen Brunson is either first or second. He's top two in the NBA in first quarter point score because he's trying to set the tone early, right? So I think it's yes and no. I just think that the organization's not asking him to do it, but if other guys aren't doing the things they're supposed to, Jalen is not going to be like he's not going to shrug his shoulders and be like, then no one else is doing their jobs, so I can't do it. He's like, all right, I'll do it. It's my job. I'll take care of it.
Yeah, I think you answered that in a very nuanced way, right? Like you got to look at these games and how they're being played, and he does come out a lot and try to set the tone. I never looked at it as him chucking or ball hogging. I think the notion of that is ridiculous. Would you like the usage to be down a little bit? Yes. I think his minutes are, and I talked about this beginning of the season, his minutes are 34.9 a game. This according to Cleaning the Glass. I kind of like that it takes out garbage time. I like where his minutes are for the most part. The usage would come down. Now you're like, okay, whose usage can go up? Well, I think a lot of us thought you might see a little bit more Mikal Bridges doing some things on the ball and creating. We saw that from him when Jalen Brunson went down late last season. But we still haven't seen a lot more of that from him, at least in this version of the offense with Mike Brown. So, you'd like to see maybe a little bit more of that. But I think you're right in that he has been reading the game and doing what needs to be done when other guys have not been getting it done. Now, maybe the bigger factor in that is, go back to another thing we talked about in Cat, how if he continues his good play and he steps up in the offense the way we think that he can based on what we've seen, maybe Jalen Brunson won't have to do too much. But we'll see. All right. One more question for you. One more question for me. What you got?
What seed do the Knicks want? Do they want to be third or do they want to be fourth? Now, why would you want to be fourth when you could be third? The look on your face is telling me. So I say that so first, okay,
Yeah,
so
you go ahead.
And this actually ties into the Brunson conversation and what have you.
Yeah.
The Knicks are currently the Knicks beat Washington, so they were one game behind Boston for the 2 seed. Now, obviously, everyone wants to be the 2 seed. You'd rather be 2 than 3 because if you're second, you have home court in the first 2 rounds. However, unfortunately, we heard news that Cade Cunningham will be out for extended period of time due to a collapsed lung. Obviously, wishing Cade Cunningham a speedy recovery, and that 65-game rule. Oh boy! But I did my online Google research. Like, how long does it take to recover from a collapsed lung? And this thing Google says 1 to 2 weeks. But maybe for me, not for someone who literally runs up and down for a living, playing basketball, guarding people, what have you.
Right.
So, if you're saying like 3-4 weeks, well, the season. Game 1 of the playoffs is basically 4 weeks from now. He may be compromised. And that guy, if I had a vote, he'd be MVP of the league because he has to do everything. And he's going to have to do that in the playoffs. So it may be an easier road for the Knicks to get to the conference finals if they are fourth, have to play Toronto or Orlando or Miami, but one of those teams, because I believe they're like all tied. I believe they're all tied.
It's all jumping down there.
And then you get past them, and then you have a Detroit Pistons team that has beat the snot out of you in 3 games, but with a clearly not 100% Cade Cunningham, who again has to do everything, and his lung collapsed. So would you rather that than being the 3 seed, getting, again, one of the smorgasbords of Miami, Orlando, Toronto, and then having to go play Boston on the road again? So what say you?
Here's what I say. It's funny. I talked about this last week with Stephen Bondi. I don't believe in ducking teams. Try to get the highest seed you can get. I understand where people want to try to plan the path out, but it never generally works that way.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I think you and I could both raise our hand on this. Path didn't look easy for the Knicks to get to the conference finals last year when you saw they were going to play Boston in the second round. And then they ended up in the conference finals. I think you should try to get the best record you can, try to get the highest seed you can. If you believe in yourself and your team, hey, pull whoever you're going to put in front of us. We got to win these games. You can't try to duck Detroit. You can't try to get Detroit at the perfect time. If you believe in your team and what you have going on, you're going to have to beat Detroit sometime. You might have to see Boston at some point. I have a lot of respect for Boston. I'm sure you do too. But you got to face who you're going to face. I think it's important for this team to still play well down the stretch, get the highest seed they can. They've been playing some pretty good basketball. I know despite some Knicks fans not thinking that because they haven't blown all these bad teams out, who cares? They've been stacking wins. They're going to get 50 wins again. They have a legit chance to pass Boston if they can continue to win. That game on April 9th could be huge. It could be for the division. I know nobody cares about Atlantic Division titles anymore, and I don't generally either. But, yeah, I'm not about ducking this and trying to get the 4. You're going to play who you're going to play when you're going to play them. Either you're confident in what you got or you're not. That's what it is. That is what it is to me. And I just want to make this clear, I don't think players and good organizations are wired like that to start ducking and try to get the best path. Good organizations and good players, good teams, they believe in the talent around them and they want to go. I think the Knicks should be motivated to beat Detroit after what they did to them this year. If that doesn't motivate you enough, I don't know what will. They've whooped your ass 3 times. But like,
no, you're right. You're right.
I do want to say to you though, and to everybody, not just you, Shawn, the stuff you are mentioning about Cade Cunningham and how you're saying like, hey, might not be just a 1 to 2 week thing. And you gotta remember, they said the Pistons put this out. He will be evaluated in 2 weeks. Evaluation is huge, right?
Yes.
A lot of things can happen in 2 weeks. I'm about to go have Achilles surgery in a couple of days. And in 2 weeks, I will be evaluated. I hope everything is fine in 2 weeks and I'm on track to start PT and just be in my boot and off crutches and all that. I hope but it may not be. I might go see my orthopedic surgeon and she might say, hey, you got to be on crutches for another week. All I'm saying is that doesn't mean he's coming back in 2 weeks. Here's the other thing. If he comes back in 2 weeks, you then have to start non-contact activities, probably non-basketball activities. Then you can start contact and basketball activities. Then you got to get back into basketball shape. The only way you can get back into basketball shape is by playing some basketball. And that takes some time. So you got to remember, Cade Cunningham for 2 weeks with a collapsed lung, you can't do anything. So I say all that to say there is actually a world, and I'm not wishing this on Cade Cunningham, and I wish him a speedy recovery and back and everything and all that good stuff. There's a world in which he could not play in the first round. He might just be coming back into the second round, assuming that the Pistons advance. And even then, he's still trying to get back into basketball shape. So he's not going to be 100% right. I also agree with you on a point you made. I think you and I tend to look at the word value and most valuable player the same way. And I kind of agree with you about him being the most valuable player to a team if he's not there right now, at least for this season in the league. I don't know. So you don't even know. You don't even know if, let's say the Knicks drop to 4. The point I'm making is if they saw the Pistons in the second round, you still might not know what kind of version of Pistons you're getting. You still might get a version of Pistons where Cade Cunningham is still trying to get things right. And listen, if you're a Knicks fan, you shouldn't be rooting for that. That's a loser mentality too. You should want to see the Pistons at full strength. You should want to play them at full strength and beat them after they beat you 3 times this season. So that's what I'll say.
And I'll say this.
Yeah.
I agree with you, and I think the Knicks should try to be third or second because now they are with Minnesota beating the Celtics on Sunday. The Knicks are now a half game behind Boston.
Yep.
But here's the thing. They might not have to run into Detroit in a conference final if they're the 3 seed anyway, because Detroit may not get there. And I said that before Cade Cunningham had his injury.
I think what you're saying is something that I've been saying, not to make this a Knicks Pistons thing, but it is hard for a team, I think this is the point you're making, that has not advanced past the first round to then all of a sudden go all the way to the conference finals or the NBA finals. It's hard.
Very hard.
The Knicks have a lot of experience. We respect Boston because they have a lot of experience. Even to some degree, the Cavs know what it's like to get past the first round. Not to the conference finals, but they know what it's like to get past the first round. And they have some players, well, Donovan Mitchell has been that far. That's it. So it's a long way. Teams are hoping they can stay healthy. The Knicks are hoping they can stay healthy. And that's it. So here's my last question for you. This is going to bring it back to the first question that you had for me, Shawn. So we're kind of going to come back here. Do you think the Knicks can and will win first quarters against playoff level competition? With the concerns that everybody's had about them in the first quarter, getting off the slow starts against playoff teams, do you think they can and will win first quarters against playoff level competition?
I think so. Especially if I think they're getting out of the first round, knock on wood. And if they play whoever, whether it's Boston or Detroit, I think they'll go over it. The regular season, whether you think it's too long, too short, whatever, has to be an experiment in data collection. And after 82 games, this Knicks team should be able to pinpoint, okay, this is why we start slow. This is what we need. This is what we need to do. Like it is time to win. It's time to win. And you can't keep digging. You cannot keep digging yourself into a hole and then have to expound twice as much energy to get out of that hole. That game last Sunday against the Warriors was infuriating. Like, you're now you should have been like what you saw against Washington this past Sunday night. That is what Golden State should look like. Well, excuse me, the Santa Cruz Warriors, because that's who was playing that game. That's how the game, like the game against Washington, is how the Golden State game should have looked. But now you had to, I think Brunson played 41 minutes that game. You had to expend all that energy in order to get a win against a team that stinks for all intents and purposes. I think they'll be better in first quarters. I think they'll be better because, again, it's winning time now. And if not now, when? Because if they don't, as Mr. Dolan said on the radio, they got to make the finals. If they don't make the finals, there will be some changes will be made. Changes are afoot. So I think they'll be better in first quarters in the playoffs.
All right, there you go. I think they will too. I think they've shown us to rise up to the level of competition. You've even seen first quarters where the San Antonio game comes to mind, where they started off slow. I think they were down, I don't know, it was 19-7 in that game, and then defense played well. That second quarter was one of the best defensive quarters I've seen all season, probably along with the third quarter in their first game at Philadelphia. So, yeah, I think they can get a bet off to better. I trust the group to rise to the occasion when the playoffs comes. I think they're very focused. I think this is a team that is waiting for the playoffs to start, just like you and I. We're trying to get through these final 10 games, waiting for the playoffs to start, excited for some postseason basketball, and it should be fun. Look,
yes, sir.
It's not a perfect team. They still got a lot of questions. We just came up with 10 questions, and I'm not sure we really answered them all because we even had some yes and no's, some yes issues that we had up in here. But, hey, this is why we watch the games, and it should be a lot of fun. That is Shawn Hardie, everybody. Check him out with Knicks Film School. Does a great job with them there. Hopefully Shawn is feeling better. I was even kind enough on this show, even though I'm doing it now, to not bring up what is going on with his team that plays in the English Premier League. I was not going to do that to the man, but you can see that man's face right there on the screen. He's a little bit stressed about that. I'm going to try to offer him some therapy off camera to do that. But Shawn, you know I appreciate you, my brother, and despite your choice in English Premier League football team, you know I still love you, man. So it's all good. I appreciate you coming on with me to talk some Knicks basketball as always.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate being on.
Anytime. As I said, check out Shawn. I'm Dexter Henry. We'll catch you next time, another edition of New York Got Game. Peace.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.